Huwag yung kayong magkadisgrasyahan tayo niyan. Sinasabi ko yung madidisgrasya kayo. At madidisgrasya kayo. Hindi ako urong dito. And I said, I would stake my honor, my life, and even the presidency.
As another historic event unfolds in the country, let's look back and see where the change has already brought us. Where are we now? What are still to be done? Know the score of the comfortable life and change the Filipino people deserve. With its 10-point socio-economic agenda, anchored on strong, sustained, and inclusive growth, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte placed infrastructure among the top priorities of the administration through the Build, Build, Build program.
We're targeting to increase government spending on infrastructure from 5% of the GDP in 2017 to 7% of the GDP by 2022, amounting to a total of 8 to 9 trillion pesos, or 160 to 180 billion dollars. In other words, we are going to build, and build.
This program covers infrastructure projects that are poised to bolster productive capacity of the economy, generate jobs, increase incomes, and boost investment climate in the country. Ranging from airports and aviation, railways, road transport, and maritime, the Build, Build, Build program seeks to uplift the lives of the Filipino people. Last January 16, 2018, President Duterte, together with Department of Transportation Secretary Arthur Tucade, led the launching of the Communications Navigation Surveillance and Air Traffic Management. According to the Transportation Department, this technology will make the airspace safer, minimize flight delays, and improve overall travel experience through the installation of additional 10 radars covering 100% of the Philippine airspace.
This is the answer to the calls of a much-needed upgrade in our country's inadequate and aging air navigation systems, which lags behind those of our neighbors in the regions. This is an important milestone in the modernization and expansion of our aviation program, and will complement the Build, Build, Build program that will usher in an unprecedented golden age of infrastructure development in the country.
Aside from the communications, navigation, surveillance, and air traffic management, the Build, Build, Build program expedites the completion and development of the following airports and aviation projects. For the convenience and availability of various transport options of the commuters, the government vowed to further improve the railway system of the country with the following. For the road transport, among the ongoing projects of the administration are last but not the least, in maritime aspect, the administration seeks to improve transshipment of cargo from Manila Port to Cavite via barges and roll-on roll-off operations through the Cavite Gateway Terminal, the modernization of ports and lighthouses, and the establishment of the Buliluyan-Kudat Ro-Ro route to serve as a sea linkage between Buliluyan, Palawan, and Kudat, Sabah to boost tourism, commerce, education, cultural exchange, and interconnectivity. Furthermore, under the Basis Conversion and Development Authority, the government envisions a new metropolis and green city through the New Clark City that will house different industries, government offices, business and education centers, among others. Inside the New Clark City will be the National Government Administrative Center, world-class and iconic sports facilities to be equipped with athletic stadium, aquatic center, and track and field oval for the country's hosting of the 2019 Southeast Asian Games. Continuing to give the Filipino people the service they deserve, the government redesigned the country's tax system to be simpler, fairer, and more efficient through the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion, or the TRAIN Law, the first package of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program.
Last May 31st, 2017, we achieved the first steps towards more equitable taxes to fund better services for the people. I commend the House of Representatives for heeding my urgent certification to the tax reform by passing the first of the 5 packages of the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program with an overwhelming 246 votes representing almost 9% of the Filipino people.
The TRAIN aims to address several weaknesses in the current tax system by simplifying personal income tax, simplifying the donors and estate tax, improving the value-added tax system, adjusting fuel excise tax, simplifying automobile excise tax, imposing tax on sweetened beverages, introducing and updating taxes on cosmetic procedures, coal excise, mining, and tobacco, and adjusting financial taxes. Through the tax reform program, the revenues raised will be utilized to fund investments in education by achieving 100% enrollment and completion rates, building 113,553 more classrooms, and hiring 181,980 more teachers between 2017 and 2020. The tax reform also serves as a way for the Filipino people to invest in the country's quality healthcare services and facilities, such as Aside from the healthcare services and facilities, the tax reform program is expected to raise revenues to support the infrastructure projects of the Department of Public Works and Highways. The Philippines lags behind its neighboring countries as far as affordability, availability, and speed of internet access is concerned. To attend to the need for a faster and cheaper internet, the President gave his marching order to the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, to develop the National Broadband Plan, or NBP, which was approved last year.
To this end, my cabinet approved the National Broadband Plan of 2017 to begin the work to bringing affordable internet access to every community and improving broadband connectivity in the country.
According to DICT, the NBP envisions an inclusive, affordable, and trusted broadband internet access. This ongoing project of the DICT ensures to accelerate the deployment of fiber optic cables and wireless technologies, and to improve the entire internet speed and affordability in the country. The efforts of the Duterte administration on poverty and corruption reduction intensified as more programs are being implemented to decrease the number of Filipinos living below the poverty line.
Not during my watch. Huwag ninyong gawin sa panahon ko. Total ako lang naman I'll be there for 3 plus months. Alis na po ako. And I just would want to give a little respite sa paghihirap sa Pilipino. So kung ano man, every centavo should be spent for the people. Though I may not be able to deliver really the comforts you want, but I assure you that during my time, at least before I step down, kailan yun, maibigay ko yung komportableng buhay para sa lahat.
President Duterte's vow to provide quality and accessible education for the Filipino youth, most especially the poor, was realized when he signed the Republic Act 10931, or the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act.
Education is the single most important legacy that we can bestow on our youth. It opened doors for countless opportunities that will lead to further empowerment, greater success, and the realization of their individual aspiration.
Under the law, students studying in state-run universities and colleges and technical vocational schools will no longer pay tuition and other miscellaneous fees. The law allotted at least 50 billion pesos and will cater to an estimate of 1.3 million Filipino youth. Likewise, under the administration's relentless efforts to combat corruption within the government ranks, the President ordered the destruction of more than 165 smuggled and used luxury cars and motor vehicles since the start of 2018.
But today we reaffirm our commitment to build a country free from the shackles of corruption. This condemnation of these smuggled vehicles demonstrates our firm stand to put an end to a long-standing societal disease that has eroded public trust and tainted the government's sincerity to deliver equitable social services. The destruction of these contraband luxury vehicles signifies a strong resolve to restore good governance, preserve our nation's dignity, and safeguard our people's welfare.
Behind the Bureau of Customs' recent accomplishments in seizing smuggled vehicles, the agency reached a historical high of 3.8 billion pesos in daily collection. The yearly collection of BOC also amounted to 456.91 billion pesos in 2017, reaching 98% of the agency's 2017 budget expenditures and sources of financing target. Also, President Duterte amended the Anti-Red Tape Act of 2007 by signing Republic Act 11032, or the Ease of Doing Business Act. Under the law, local government units are required to set up one-stop shops to make it easier for the people applying for business permits and to use an online unified application business form. This act orders the government to comply with the rule of completing simple transactions within 3 working days. Since the signing of the Freedom of Information Order by President Duterte, the FOI People's Manuals are currently available in the respective transparency seal pages of various government agencies' websites. 100% or 189 out of the 189 national government agencies have their respective FOI manuals ready for download from the internet. For government-owned and controlled corporations or GOCCs, 67% or 101 out of the 151 GOCCs have complied with the FOI manuals. Aside from this, 88% or 99 out of the 113 state universities and colleges have their FOI manuals as well. And for local water districts, the recorded FOI compliance rate was 35% or 175 out of the 500 local water districts. The Presidential Communications Operations Office, which is the lead agency for FOI, plans to expand the program to local government units through the crafting of their respective local FOI ordinances with the help of the Department of the Interior and local government.
While we can control the acts of man, no one can control to stop and the fury and the rampage of weather gone wild. When nature fights back, it does so with a vengeance. We have seen that the terrible toll that the super typhoon Yolanda and the succeeding typhoons exacted in terms of human life and property. And we still have to recover from the beating that we got both during and in the aftermath of those mega typhoons.
According to the Philippines Disaster Profile, as posted by the UNICEF Philippines website, the country is highly exposed to natural hazards such as typhoons, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and landslides because of its geographic location. Lying along the Pacific Typhoon Belt within the Pacific Ring of Fire, the impact of natural disasters is felt by 100 million Filipinos, most of whom are among the poorest and the marginalized. With different kinds of disasters happening one after another, experts often say that they are no longer a question of if, but a matter of when. The thrust of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte's administration is to get the local government and the entire citizenry involved in disaster preparedness.
I am directing the Cabinet Cluster on Climate Change and Adaptation and Disaster Risk Management to immediately work hand in hand with the concerned LGUs, the private sector, and the affected communities themselves in undertaking disaster measures, antidotes.
With a cabinet cluster on climate change and adaptation and mitigation, one of the most active in this group is the Office of Civil Defense of the Department of National Defense. Its main mission is to implement concrete actions on national civil defense and manage the country's disaster risk reduction. Hence, the creation of a working group called the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. The OCD and the NDRRMC annually hold disaster preparedness activities involving local communities. Tapping the local government units' disaster management councils, realistic simulation of events are conducted every quarter nationwide. The most recent of which is the second quarter nationwide simultaneous earthquake drill held on June 21, 2018 with the municipality of San Mateo in the province of Rizal as the host community. As mandated by law through Republic Act 10639, the NDRRMC also sends out warning signals and emergency alerts through text messages about any calamity. With the help of the National Telecommunications Commission, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, and the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology.
Come to think of it, really, is there? They say that there is no perfect instrument or human acumen can really predict earthquakes. I hope it will not come.
In the Philippines, the National Capital Region or Metro Manila remains the most challenging region to respond when struck by natural disasters. With a population of about 13 million people, cramped up houses and strings of traffic everywhere often hamper disaster response efforts.
We need to undertake immediate action to ensure disaster resiliency and effective response in the Greater Manila area, which is our country's seat of governance, center of business, commerce, and academia.
With this, one of the government's approaches is to decongest Metro Manila and clean up its drainage system. Led by the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, various traffic and flood control efforts are being implemented all over the region. The MMDA officers and personnel skip no day in clearing operations, especially in the major thoroughfares of the metro. Sidewalk vendors and settlers with makeshift houses are enforced to clear the streets and observe the right of pedestrians and motorists. The drainage system in flood-prone areas, such as creeks and manholes, are being declogged of waste materials. The MMDA also posts in its official Facebook page and other social media accounts real-time updates on traffic in impassable roads, especially when a typhoon surge occurs. All measures form part of the agency's mission to ensure disaster resiliency in the National Capital Region, alongside its continuous initiatives in the areas of development planning, transport and traffic, solid waste disposal, urban renewal and shelter services, sanitation and pollution control, public safety, and flood control.
Disaster resiliency of Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces is a matter of urgent concern.
With the directives of President Duterte, government agencies in the field of disaster preparedness never cease to improve their efforts in laying out strategies and acquiring new technologies in order to ensure the safety and security of the Filipino people.
Believe me, it is easier to build from scratch than to dismantle the rotten and rebuild upon its rubbles. Nevertheless, let us work together and lay a new foundation upon which a better Philippines can be reconstructed. Help me build a better tomorrow.
Since the beginning of his incumbency as the 16th duly elected President of the Philippines, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte has championed peace and order as the precursor of economic growth, citing how his leadership as then Davao City Mayor paved the way for the city to become a thriving metropolis amid the growing threats of destabilization from armed rebel groups in Mindanao. On a mission to replicate what he achieved in Davao City, with strong emphasis on installing lasting peace in the country, the President vowed to sustain the Armed Forces of the Philippines modernization program, a move that would soon prove to be crucial to combat a new wave of Islamic extremism taking root in Mindanao. On May 23, 2017, the Maute, a local jihadist militant group with networks linking the notorious ISIS, seized complete control of Marawi City as its Islamic State, ensuing in months-long battle between the jihadist militants and the military. By declaring the whole of Mindanao under martial law and with the military operation in full swing, the Commander-in-Chief was able to completely annihilate the Maute ISIS group in just 5 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare Marawi City liberated from the terrorist influence that marks the beginning of rehabilitation of the people.
The crisis in Marawi had rendered the city beyond recognition, with much of its establishments pulverized to the ground. In order to bring back the city's former grandeur, the President formed the Task Force Bangon Marawi, an interagency task force group organized to facilitate the rehabilitation, recovery, and reconstruction efforts in Marawi. Integrating former communist rebels back into the folds of society also tops the priority list of the President on its peace and security efforts. This, despite the termination of peace talks with the leaders of the New People's Army. As testament to the growing trust and friendlier ties with the surrendering rebels, the President hosted a dinner in Malacañang and organized a tour in Manila. The affair was attended by 215 former communist guerrillas stationed in Mindanao. They form the first batch of the 683 former rebels currently undergoing the military's reintegration program. With peace and security at the heart of his governance, President Duterte revives the Bangsamoro Basic Law, placing emphasis on its passage as a high-priority bill in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Once signed into law, the Bangsamoro Basic Law will replace the Autonomous Region for Muslim Mindanao or ARM to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Recognizing the invaluable service and sacrifices of the military and uniformed personnel to safeguard the nation, President Duterte signed into law the joint resolution passed by the House and the Senate that would double their base pay. Following the wage hike, the government allocates various AFP-PNP housing programs throughout the country, like the Scout Rangerville in Bulacan and the Vista Alegre homes in Talisay City.
And I will persist in our goal of attaining peace to the last day of this administration and maybe even beyond, although in a different capacity. To decisively address insurgency and terrorism, we are working doubly hard towards a stronger and more credible national defense system for the country. We continue to strengthen the defense capability of the AFP as a deterrent against terrorists, lawless elements, and others.
2017 was a banner year for the Philippines under President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, as the country hosted the 30th and 31st Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summits and related meetings, with the theme Partnering for Change, Engaging the World. ASEAN leaders and dialogue partners converged in the Philippines, with President Duterte taking the helm of the discussions.
It was an honor having fruitful and productive exchanges with you on these issues of regional and global importance, which we hope to translate into concrete actions that would benefit the peoples of our region.
One landmark document that was signed as the summit concluded is the ASEAN Consensus on the Protection and Promotion of the Rights of Migrant Workers. According to President Duterte, this historic governmental document is their promise to the ASEAN migrant workers to strengthen social protection, access to justice, humane and fair treatment, and access to health services, among others.
We now talk about our overseas Filipinos. They are our heroes. They and their families have sacrificed much for the country. We all know how a large part of our economy comes from their remittances. That is why, to ensure that their rights are protected, I ordered the increase of our assistance to the OFW from 400 million to more than 1 billion.
Time and again, President Duterte has recognized the hard work and sacrifices of the overseas Filipino workers, calling them the nation's heroes. As a genuine gesture of his support and concern, he ordered the release of more than 1 billion pesos in funds to assist his kababayans who encounter emergencies and other problems abroad. Before 2017 ended, the Department of Foreign Affairs signed the new guidelines on the use of the Assistance to Nationals, or ATN Fund, and the Legal Assistance Fund. From 400 million pesos, the ATN Fund has increased to 1 billion pesos for 2018, while the Legal Assistance Fund went up to 200 million pesos for 2018 compared to 100 million pesos the year before. Through these funds, distressed overseas Filipino workers are assured of quicker response and improved services from the Philippine government. Even in his official and working visits abroad, President Duterte ensures that he gets to meet with his kababayans, to know their concerns, and share what his government programs are for the upliftment of every Filipino and the nation's development as a whole. His Filipino community meetings are all fully anticipated and jam-packed, with Pinoys taking time off from their respective works and even traveling for several hours just to see their beloved president, whom they voted into office. In his trip to Hong Kong, he talked to a Filipino household service worker and committed to shoulder her flight tickets so she could go home to the Philippines and be with her family. He participated in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in Vietnam, the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit and the India's Republic Day in New Delhi, the BOA Forum for Asia in the People's Republic of China, and the 32nd ASEAN Summit in Singapore. More importantly, his recent foreign travels yielded investment pledges and various agreements for the Philippines' economic development, targeting infrastructure projects for regional and provincial areas, employment generation, and more investments.
We have embarked on various initiatives to advance our national interests in the global community. We pursue good relations with all nations anchored on an independent foreign policy and the basic tenets of sovereign equality, mutual respect, and non-interference.
2 years into his administration, President Rodrigo Duterte remains steadfast as he continues to cultivate genuine and meaningful change in the country. The journey to a better Philippines has begun, with new foundations being laid to stand the test of time. It is now up to each and every Filipino to be partners for change in order to achieve the collective dream of a prosperous motherland and comfortable life for all.